This National Professional Anglers Association video presentation is brought to you by Missouri Secrets Tackle and 241 Inc. Productions.
Woo! That video means a lot to me. It really does. But a lot of you are wondering right now, why did I just show you that video? Well, there's really two reasons, so let me explain them both. First and foremost, this conference is about professional and professionalism. These two terms must interact, and they have to be interconnected. Hi, for those of you that don't know me, my name's Scott. A lot of people call me Triple S, and many of you know me in relation to my profession, the Brotherhood of Arms, or military service. And many of you might even call me a professional as it relates to my military service. And I continue to work towards that goal on the fishing side as well. And believe me, many of you know this, I am proud to take my regular beatings daily from a lot of you. It's a process, and that's the word I want you to remember. Being a professional is a process. And remember that word, because it comes up again and again. Remember what you just saw in that video. All those soldiers, airmen, and Marines for whom which I've served. If, and I stress if, I am a professional, it is only because they allowed me to be. It is only because they allowed me to be. Like many things in our lives, it comes down to the choices that we make and how others perceive those choices and outcomes. Now, many of you, would you agree with that? But why are they professionals, and why is it so important? For those of you in this room who have served or continue to serve, I suspect you believe what I just said. And I'd like to thank all of those that have served or currently served in this room. Thank you for your service. Today, I have the honor to share the stage with our MPA president, Mr. Jimmy Bell, and we hope to set the stage for professionalism defined, providing some perspective, some processes to consider, and methodology that fosters further discussion. But make no mistake, at the end of the day, it is you that will decide to be a professional and others who will decide if you truly are. Now that is our quest. And oh yeah, I forgot about the second reason. The second reason why I showed you that video is because while helicopters are cute and they're sexy, tanks and artillery are just badass. I can't help it, they just are. So as we begin today, we need to take a look at some definitions. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jimmy Bell.
Thank you, Scott. Gotta admit, tanks are pretty badass when you look at those pictures. So I'm going to walk you a little bit through some of the definitions. So what we want to start with is kind of why are definitions important. As the Colonel mentioned, we're going to walk you through some process. We're going to walk you through a little strategy. And you're going to learn some things along the way. And it might not be as laser focused as you absolutely think it's going to be. So let's first go into definition. Why is definition important to us? Why can't I just have my own opinion of what a word means? What does professional mean? Why can't it just be me that figures that out? So let's talk a little bit about it. Creates clarity, right? So if we look at some of the definitions that are out there, it helps us create clarity around what it means. What it means not only to you as an individual, but what it means to keep us all on the same page. Because if we have a definition of something and I think it's one thing and you think it's another thing, what that's going to do is it's going to make it very difficult for us to have a conversation on common ground. So the term itself, a definition of something, is we're trying to get that clarity where everybody can agree to what it is. Let me use an example. Speeding. We all know what the word means, right? So if I take my friend Mike Lillimo, he might tell me that speeding in a 60-mile-an-hour zone is 72 miles an hour. You can go 72 miles an hour, nobody's ever going to give you a ticket. I might go at 63 miles an hour in there and think 63 is okay. but we both know damn well if that officer pulls us over, whether I'm doing 72 or 63, he's going to give us a ticket. Because we know the definition of speeding is anything above the posted speed limit. So we can have our own visions of what that is, what the definition of something is, but the reality is that it's all around the exact term and what it means to everybody. So I'm going to walk you through 3 different definitions here. The first one we're going to start with is Webster's, right? I mean, all of us grew up with Webster's and we know what it is. Let's go through and see what they got to see and break it down a little bit for everybody. The first thing we say is relating to a job that requires special education, training, or skill. That's kind of like duh, of course. That fits all of us, right? We can go with that. We can say, okay, that helps us, but does it really create clarity for us? Then they go on and say, done or given by a person who works in a particular profession. Now, the colonel and I looked at this one and said, what the heck is that all about? Works in a profession. So the only thing we could figure here is it was like something with a doctor, right? He's giving professional advice. It really doesn't really kind of pertain to us in 100%, but I kind of get it. Then we go to paid to participate in a sport or activity. Spot on. All right, we got a little bit. We all agree with that. We all want to be paid, right? All of us might not be paid, but all of us want to be paid. So a professional does it something where they're paid for every activity. So now we got Webster's. Now we're going to go into the tech world and look, all right, for all the young guys, I know you guys probably don't have a Webster's dictionary sitting at home, right? Any of you guys got a Webster dictionary that you look up words in? Probably not. You're probably online. So let's go one of the online ones, dictionary.com. See what they've got to say. See if it's any different. See if it helps us build some clarity around the whole situation. Expert in a field. Excellent practical and literary skills. Agree, right? That sounds like what we should have for a definition. If we're professional, we should be experts in our field, fishing, promoting, selling, whatever that may be. Excellent practical and literary skills. Everybody that's in here that's got any experience realizes that the business side of what we do is just as important as the fishing side of what we do. So yeah, that makes sense. I get that. Okay, we're on a roll. High quality in work, high standards, and reasonable work, morale, and motivation. High quality, spot on, got it. High standards, got it. Reasonable, what the heck is reasonable? How can they put this? I think this is where the guys that, the kind of marshmallow that we get in our society right now, they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Reasonable? What's reasonable? Does that mean if I'm like at 60%, is that good enough? That doesn't create definition for me and certainly doesn't create clarity for me. Now we looked at the last one, appropriate treatment of relationships with colleagues and commitment to the field. Same guy that wrote the one before must have wrote this one. Appropriate? What's appropriate? Is it okay if I'm a butthead to somebody? Is that appropriate to me? That means I can still be a professional? Again, doesn't really create the clarity that I think we need to have in something like this. So now we're going to look at one more. And this one is probably the one that most of us use, and probably these gentlemen back here would use as well. Wikipedia, right? We all got to go to Wikipedia. Now here's what I'm going to do with Wikipedia. Somebody that wrote this must have been a PhD because it's a sentence that's about this long, so I'm going to break it down into 3 pieces because it's the only way that I can't put it all up on the screen at first. So the first part of the sentence is a professional is a member of a profession or a person who earns their living from a specified professional activity. Bingo. Wikipedia's got it right. Wikipedia lets all of us kind of put input, so I think this is where the colonel and I probably got online. Well, maybe not the colonel. He's probably not the best of an online guy, but he probably has somebody that could do it for him. So he probably let somebody know. Let's get into Wikipedia and let them know what we think this is supposed to be. Second part of the sentence, the term also describes the standards of education and training, knowledge and skills necessary to perform their specific role. Bing, we got it. We're going, right? Wouldn't you guys agree that that sounds like what we're trying to define as professional? Now, we're still in the same sentence, if you notice. There's just a whole bunch of commas in here. So again, we've got our PhD friend, but I think our PhD friend right here must have grabbed the guy from dictionary.com and decided let him put the last part of the sentence together. In addition, most professionals are subject to strict codes of conduct enshrining rigorous ethical and moral obligations. Most? Does that mean I don't have to and still be a professional? How does that dictate what we're going to do? So again, I think they use the other guy that's in there. So what I'm saying here is if we've got this, and even the onlines can't specify exactly what professional is going to be, how can we truly define it? Is it something we can define in words, or is it something bigger than that? I give you my good friend, Mr. Scott St. Sauver, and he's going to try to build a little clarity around this for us, and I think he does a pretty good job. Scott, thank you.
Yep, thank you, Jimmy. Okay. So why is it that the label of profession is given to so few? It appears to me there's a lot of self-proclaimed professionals out there. However, as I said earlier, I do not believe that we get to choose. Dr. Dale Atkins does a great TED Talk on professional, and he does it with kids and students. So if you ever get a chance, please look him up. But Dale believes profession is a process. And to start that process, you truly have to understand that process. And the first thing you have to understand is that profession is not a single event. It is a journey. And it's sparked by your interest and your desire. I hear the word passion in these rooms all the time, and you all have it already. That is the interest and desire. And the value is determined by the services delivered, but not in the normal context of services delivered, because the value of a professional is delivery of that service through informed judgments or decisions. Informed judgments or decisions. Now let me give you a couple examples. And they're going to be military examples, and I'll get into some other ones, but these are easy for me, and I think it'll be easy for you to understand. So you've all seen war movies. You've all watched that young squad leader or young lieutenant take a group of soldiers, whether it be a squad or a platoon, into combat, into an area that they shouldn't really be or they have to go. Well, imagine being that young squad leader or team leader in combat. His or her informed judgment is based on extensive training, and that creates the value to each team member. Each team member, because of those decisions and judgment, has value, and to a much larger group. And in this case, obviously, we're trying the far extreme of life or death decisions. Now imagine my role a few years ago when I had 700 of these kids in Iraq escorting civilian convoys in and out of Iraq. They depended on my judgment through my years of service and my experience to make decisions that kept them, the truck drivers they were escorting, the citizens of the country of Iraq, and the families of those soldiers back home safe through every decision I made. Now apply that to your trade or your trades and determine which level do you desire to operate. Because I'll tell you, it is okay to be a technician or a skilled laborer because they're both incredibly important and have an important role. But the term professional is meant to differentiate you, me, and others who apply that judgment because they expect more. You see, professional cannot just be a label. Professional is attitudes. It's all about attitudes that reinforce behavior, that further reinforce actions that you make, and then in turn reinforce and redo those behaviors. Now, many of you have seen this before. This is not new. It just may be in a different context. Now, this is an elementary idea. Behaviors reinforcing attitudes, behaviors, actions, and attitudes. And remember, because it's going to context itself back in many areas. This is the baseline vision for the core Army values that I've lived by for the last 35 years. It is also the baseline vision of many of the most successful corporations in America, and I would suggest to you it is also the baseline vision of many of you here and many of us as individuals. Now let me give you another example. How many of you have been to Walt Disney World in Florida? You know, arguably the most happy place on earth, right? Where dreams come true, unless you're paying. Then maybe not so much. Okay, a little grumpy after the end of the day. Well, in 1982, most of you probably wouldn't believe that I did my college internship at Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida. And no, for a lot of you in the audience out there that are thinking it in your head right now, I was not Goofy in the parade. Okay? I was a young student in park and recreation, and I wanted to understand the world of private recreation and why and how places like Disney World made people so happy. In this program, I was required to attend Disney University once per week and work in the parks the rest of the week. Now, Disney was committed to their interns, understanding what Walt Disney himself believed and how he would accomplish it, his baseline vision. And that baseline vision was the thing we learned the first day, and it's something I will never forget the rest of my life. Everything that man believed was about the Disney image. It has everything to do what I just explained. And it outlined Disney, because Disney has zero tolerance for anything but appearance, attitude, and behavior. A trained professional image that not only met customers' objectives, but required discipline, honor, and commitment to an ideal. It was my first real experience of working with a professional organization. I was also lucky enough to be on the very first crew that worked at Epcot Center the day it opened, October 1st, 1982. I was so proud, and I was so excited. I was well trained, I was well dressed, and for the first time in my life, I felt like a professional. And after that day, I could think of being nothing but a professional. You know, in one of life's many ironies, Deb and I returned to Disney World in 2011 on our 30th anniversary. And just like the commercial you probably saw a couple years ago where the parents steal away and they leave their kids at home, that's exactly what we did. We've donned our mouse ears, and man, were our kids mad. They were upset. But as we checked in that day and we started in to get our tickets, I ran into a young lady, and she said to us, "I see you worked here. I'm currently going through the Magic Kingdom College program, Disney University." That was 29 years ago. And she pulled up in the computer who I was and that I had worked for the company. What an accomplishment for Disney to continue to run that program. But how incredible it was, and the pride I felt for working for that corporation for the short time that I did and being tied to it. So, okay, you've waited long enough. Hold on, because as I was going through my research, I had to find the one thing that you could write down, take with you to the bank, new, amazing, the thing you have to be a professional. So here it is, the framework for success. Knowing, doing, helping, and learning. And then I went, wow, that's not exciting. That's not new. But I got to tell you, if you look at those four things, knowing, doing, helping, and learning, they're incredibly difficult, and I mean hard work to accomplish. So let's go through them one by one. Knowing. Knowing's about learning everything. Learning everything. Make no mistake, I want to know about your craft. When you speak about your craft, I am listening. If you think I'm just standing there looking at the ceiling, no. I am watching and listening to everything you say, because the goal is to know more than others. That is the competitive edge, and many of you in this room already have it. I mean, I can tell you for a fact, many of you have it, because I can't go fishing with any of you and not have the first thing that happened go, I'm going to beat you. It happens to me all the time, and I do get beat pretty much all the time. Okay? But what you do during this process of knowing more than others is you develop your skills. And you all do that throughout your life. So you develop your skills. And then you have to understand and apply those skills. And the key to that is you have to do something with it. It does you no good to know all this stuff and know more than others if you don't do something with it. So that leads us to doing, if it turns. Doing is about demonstrating your skills out there every day, demonstrating your skills. Because when you demonstrate your skills, you create knowledge. And professionals create knowledge that creates options and solutions to solve problems. That's what professionals do. But here's generally where we skew off and forget what we learned about who determines the value of services delivered. But you can go ahead right now and call yourself a professional with those two things. But you don't decide without understanding the next 2 points. And that is helping. Remember, everything we do is about people. Okay? It's about judgment. And the judgment or decisions that you make that affect other people. And professionals make a difference. This is about giving and being there for people. Professionals make a difference. Now, here are 2 examples I'll give you. One's positive and one is not so much positive. I love Alaska, and I've fished up there many times, meeting many great people, primarily in the Kenai Peninsula. I love jigging lingcod. It's one of the favorite things. If you've never done it, please put it on your list. It's amazing. I love it. And so through my research and talking to people, understanding the timing, the tides, the weather aspects that affect catching lingcod, I sought out a charter that would do just that and specialized, in multi-species fishing and especially lingcod. And I reached out over a year in advance to discuss that with the owner. The owner said he had 2 fishing boats beside himself, and while I couldn't get on his boat, they all fish together in the same areas, and that he targets lingcod. That's what he does. Unless the weather weathers him out, that's his primary goal. And so he said, no worries, I'll put you on one of the other boats, and we'll be fishing the same area. So the long-anticipated day comes, and me and 5 of my friends show up at the docks, and it's dark. If you've been up to Alaska, you know how it is. You're waiting for the weather conditions, and our captain doesn't show up. But the owner of the charter comes and says, don't worry, he'll be here, and they take off. The other 2 boats take off. Well, a little bit later, the captain showed up, and it was immediately apparent that he'd been out on a bender the night before. I mean, he was in no shape to really do anything. But then he said to us, we're not going to be going for lingcod today, as it'll take too long to get there, and we're late, and I want to ensure you get halibut and rockfish. And I politely said, but that's not what this group chartered. To which he says, fine, you can call the charter service and try to get your money back. So I talked to the other 5 guys a year in advance, remember, and a lot of you have these same kind of, maybe have these experiences. And I said, all right, I acquiesced. So we did exactly what he said. We went a little ways out in the harbor where you could go anytime, caught a few chicken halibut and a few rockfish. Now the first mate made the day because she did an amazing, amazing job. She was fantastic. Everything that you expect. But Captain Fantastic, he just laid in the wheelhouse till it was time to go back. So I was very disappointed, obviously. So I contacted the owner, and after a couple of lengthy conversations, I received a small portion of our money back, but no apology for the captain's attitude or his behavior. Now, do you think I have recommended this guide service to anyone? Do you think that I have steered potential clients away from this guide service? Yeah, probably, yeah. Yet, I contend with all of you, they are a chartered, professional guide service, our peers. So let me give you one more example. Conversely, I spent the day with a fishing guide in Minnesota who I didn't know that well, but really wanted to get to know. Everything I had seen about him and people had told me was he was a man of great integrity and skill. And wow, he did not disappoint. His attitude and behavior were amazing. He worked his tail off on a very, very tough bite and was interested in getting to know us, and we were as much as we were to get to know him. Now, we only caught 4 fish that day, and he was devastated. I mean, he was absolutely devastated. But I can tell you, in all of the guide trips that I've ever been on, that was the best money and time I ever spent. Now, let me ask you, do you think I recommended this guide service to anybody? Do you think I steered potential clients toward him? Professionals make a difference. They make a difference. Now, let me pose this question to you, and you don't have to answer me now. What I'd like you to do is think about what I'm going to say, and if you've got some thoughts, I'd like you to come up to me afterwards, anytime during the conference, give me a call, and tell me what you think, because I obviously have some strong opinions on things, all right? Do you think that we as an organization have the responsibility to address those who don't understand the professional philosophy? Because I think we do. It's our sport. And those that know me well know how much I believe in that. Now, there's one other thing, and it's near and dear to my heart, because obviously you see I'm multi-degreed, which just means that anybody can graduate from college, guys. That's all that means, okay? It's about learning. Learning is a commitment, and it's a lifelong commitment. You need to be a lifelong learner because you're going to solve tomorrow's problems with what you learn and what you might learn tomorrow. And a lot of you do this every day in your product and development and your research and your own personal goals. It's about staying current. Yesterday's knowledge and skills are not good enough for tomorrow. Who's the next young gun out there like Corey Springle or Danny Woodkey to enter your ranks? And why does he or she have to be young? What if it's a 55-year-old Army guy who hovers around your boats, your tackle, and your conversations? I'm just saying. Okay? Now, I've told soldiers repeatedly since the global war on terrorism began that if you haven't deployed in the last year, then your combat experience has to be updated because the tactics, techniques, and procedures change, and the enemy evolves, and you must evolve as well. Kind of like what you're doing, just on a different context. You have to evolve. The tactics, techniques, and procedures change every day. Now, professional means you are leaning forward always. Professional means you're always leaning forward. Now, I have an old Army saying, and I didn't quote it. I don't have any good sayings. I steal them from everybody else. But I would rather associate with those who lean so far forward that they fall out of their foxholes, as opposed to those who never see over the edge. Remember where we started. Professionals deliver. So, you know, the old cliche that I could think of, and it comes in my head every day when I see it, what's in your wallet? I'll turn it over to Jimmy Bell.
Thank you, Scott. I can tell you what's in my wallet. I'm a fisherman, so it's not a whole heck of a lot. So that's just the way it rolls, I guess. So hopefully as the Colonel has gone through this, what you've learned is it's not just a definition, right? There's a lot more to what's going on here. So what I'd like to do is, as best as I can, is summarize what's going on. So realistically, being a professional, from what the Colonel is saying, is a journey. It's not a destination. We're learning all the time. We're helping people all the time. We're doing what we need to do all the time. And every time we're doing it, the hope is we're getting better at it, correct? I mean, if we're not advancing ourselves as a professional. So knowing, doing, helping, and learning. Look at it this way. There are 4 legs to this framework. What I would advise, and what we would advise, is you pick the weakness that you have. And what you want to do is strengthen that leg the best that you can. So if I've got a table, and I've got 3 legs that are high and 1 that's low, if I bring that up, even if I bring it up higher than the rest, the next thing I got to do is bring the others up. And what you're continually doing is making yourself better. Get out there. If we look at the Colonel, myself, many others, what we're trying to do, right? The reason we're here right now is I'm doing something and I'm trying to help people. The same thing the Colonel's trying to do. So the framework works. It allows us all to get on the same page, just like a definition does, and understand where it is. Let's look at the left. Always remember that it's others that will make the classification. We do the actions, we do the work, but it's other people that are going to decide where we are on this. Your attitude, actions, and behaviors will dictate how they view you. So again, what we're saying, it's not you that gets to choose whether you're a professional. It is not you that gets to choose what level of professional you are. It's the people in this room and all of those that you associate with that are going to make that. More than just fishing skills, but business, image, and integrity as well. All these things pull together to give you I was talking to the colonel right before, and I don't know if any of you remember, and if there's a tennis, I know who, Robert. Are you in here, Robert Cardenas? There you are. So the tennis player that used to have the commercial that images everything, it was with a camera. I don't know. Thank you. It's true, right? If I asked David Ittner back there and said, David, is image important to your fishermen? Right? It's important. So there's many legs that we've got to work on to do this. Look to others for role models to also help you. I'll give you an example here. Many of you in this room know I'm a recovering alcoholic. When I went to my first meetings, I put myself in treatment. And I went to one of my first meetings, I remember very specifically looking at an individual and saying, that's what I want. That gentleman has exactly what I want. Now, I could do two things. I could look at that and continue to work and figure out how I can get there. Or to me, the wise thing seemed to be, I need to go talk to that individual and understand what is it that got you to where you are. Because he's been down a road and been down a path that I needed to follow. What made him successful at what he's doing? We do the same thing as fishermen. All of us in this room are here to help each other. I am guessing that Gary Parsons in the back, if you went up and talked to him and asked him, what are the top 5 things that are important to me? One of you guys from Brainerd, he is going to help you. He's not going to turn his back and go the other way. So look to the people that are in this room for that advice. We've got role models and we can use those. I'm going to use a real live example. This one makes the colonel a little nervous. I asked him about it first. So all of us, let me understand, how many of you in this room, raise your hand, that have known the colonel and call him a friend? Raise a hand. Okay, great. Now I'm going to use another raise of hands here. He talked about his military background. He's a very humble man, I can tell you that, and I've got, it almost brings tears to my eyes, the respect that I have for this man. But I am sure that every one of us in here, without a doubt, would call him a professional when it comes to his military background. But I've known the colonel and I've watched him fish. So I'm going to ask you another question. How many in this room would consider the colonel a professional in regards to fishing and his military background like I do? Raise your hand. Look at that. Look at how many we've got up in this room. Vast majority have raised their hand and believe the colonel is professional not only in his military, but also in his fishing. I've got one more question. How many in this room know exactly the accomplishments in related to fishing that the colonel has? How many people know exactly what he's done, tournament fishings, winnings, whatever, any of that? Raise your hand if you know exactly what he's done. Pretty freaking amazing. So none of us in this room understand the accomplishments that this man has done. But yet, almost every person in this room considers him a professional. Think about that. All of us think that a professional is somebody that's been very successful in the tournament world. Money, whatever it may be. But in reality, it's not true. The truism is that it's all about the individual and what they've done. Now let's look at the colonel. What is he knowing? He talked about it, right? He is a frickin' sponge out there. We watch him. He wants to learn everything he can. He wants to know everything he can, and he wants to do everything he can. Many of us that have fished Camp Ripley and other events know the involvement that he's got for helping, right? We know he is a helping individual. He wants to help every military personnel that he's got out there. And we've got to respect that. So all of these things have led us to the decision to call him a professional. And I would argue that all of us probably would put him up at the top of the professional. Because what it's doing by all of us in our actions is how far up or down that spectrum we actually are as a professional. And I will give you that my friend Scott St. Sauver is up towards the top of that, not only in his military, but on his fishing side. Would you agree? Lots of heads nodding. So that's what our journey is, and that's what we're here to tell you. We don't have a laser focus. What we've got is a process, a framework, and what we believe works.